It all started with a simple headache, or at least that's what I told myself. A dull throb behind my eyes that escalated into a pounding drum, echoing the chaotic rhythm of my life. I was 22, working 2 jobs and drowning in student loan debt, but I never imagined it would lead to me collapsing on the cold, sterile floor of my workplace. The next thing I knew, I was being wheeled into an emergency room, a blurry kaleidoscope of worried faces and hushed voices. That's when the real nightmare began. The doctors, bless their hearts, did what any medical professional would do. They called my parents. They never came. Not a text, not a callback, just a deafening silence that screamed louder than any alarm. Instead, my sister, who I hadn't spoken to in years, showed up. Can you believe it? The one person I thought had completely abandoned me was the one who answered the call. Was I wrong to feel a bitter sting amidst the relief? Tell me if you would have felt the same gut-wrenching mix of emotions. Let me take you back, to truly understand the depth of this betrayal and the unexpected warmth of my sister's presence. My name is Alex, and my story, like many, is a tangled mess of family drama, financial struggles, and a desperate search for belonging. Growing up, my parents, Mark and Susan, always painted a picture of the perfect family. We lived in a charming suburban house, had annual vacations, and outwardly, we were the envy of our neighborhood. But behind closed doors, it was a different story. My older sister, Sarah, and I were often pitted against each other. Sarah was the golden child, the straight-A student, the obedient one. I was the rebellious artist, the dreamer, the one who always seemed to disappoint. From a young age, I internalized this narrative, believing I was inherently flawed. My parents' praise was a rare commodity, usually reserved for Sarah's achievements, while my own were often met with a dismissive nod or critical remark. When I decided to pursue art in college, the rift between us widened into a chasm. They saw it as a frivolous pursuit, a waste of money, and a guaranteed path to poverty. Sarah, ever the pragmatic one, sided with them, constantly reminding me of the financial burden I was placing on our family. I ended up taking out substantial student loans, working tirelessly to prove them wrong, to show them that my passion wasn't a mistake. I juggled classes, an internship, and a part-time job, constantly exhausted but fueled by a stubborn desire to succeed on my own terms. My relationship with Sarah deteriorated completely after a particularly heated argument during my freshman year. I had called her, desperately needing support after a rough week, only for her to tell me that I had made my bed and now I had to lie in it. That was the last time we spoke. We didn't exchange Christmas cards, birthday wishes, or even a fleeting text message. It was as if I had been erased from her life. And honestly, it hurt. It hurt more than I ever let on. I missed my sister, even the one who constantly criticized me. She was still my only sibling, the only person who truly understood the subtle dynamics of our parents' expectations. But pride, that insidious beast, kept us apart. Fast forward to that fateful day at work. I was managing a small retail store, a job I picked up to cover my rent and tuition. The headache started subtly, a dull throb behind my eyes, then escalated into a pounding drum. I tried to push through it, to ignore the growing nausea and the blurry spots dancing in my vision. I was in the middle of stocking shelves when my legs gave out. One moment, I was meticulously arranging designer jeans. The next, I was looking up at the fluorescent lights, the world spinning around me. My manager, a kind woman named Brenda, rushed over, her face a mask of concern. She called an ambulance, and that's when the blur began. The paramedics were efficient, asking questions I could barely answer, their voices distant and muffled. The emergency room was a whirlwind of activity, nurses and doctors moving with a sense of urgency. They ran tests, hooked me up to IVs, and tried to get a coherent story out of me. When they mentioned calling my emergency contacts, a flicker of hope ignited in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, my parents would come. Maybe this would be the catalyst, the moment they realized I needed them. So that's the situation I was in, completely vulnerable and hanging by a thread, and I had to make a choice. Or rather, hope someone else would make a choice to show up for me. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have held on to hope for your parents, Or would you have resigned yourself to facing it alone? The hours stretched into an eternity. Each time the door to my cubicle opened, I held my breath, only to deflate as a nurse or another medical professional entered. My phone, which Brenda had thoughtfully brought from my purse, remained stubbornly silent. No calls, no texts. My parents, the people who were supposed to be my rock, my safe harbor, were nowhere to be found. A cold, hard knot of disappointment tightened in my stomach. It wasn't just the physical pain that was overwhelming me. It was the emotional desolation. The doctors, seeing my distress, tried again. They called Sarah. I didn't even know she was listed as an emergency contact, a testament to how long it had been since we'd genuinely connected. I closed my eyes, bracing myself for another wave of silence, another rejection. But then, an hour later, a familiar voice, laced with a tremor of concern, cut through the sterile quiet of the emergency room. "Alex? Oh my God, Alex!" I opened my eyes to see Sarah standing there, her usually impeccably styled hair slightly disheveled, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and worry. She looked different. Not the polished, slightly judgmental Sarah I remembered, but a woman who looked genuinely distraught. She rushed to my side, her hand gently touching my forehead. "What happened? Are you okay?" Her voice was barely a whisper. I couldn't speak. The shock of seeing her, the overwhelming relief, and the deep-seated anger at my parents all coalesced into a choked sob. A doctor approached, explaining my diagnosis: severe dehydration and exhaustion, exacerbated by stress. He recommended I stay overnight for observation and fluids. Sarah listened intently, asking intelligent questions, taking notes on her phone. She was everything my parents weren't in that moment. She was present. She was concerned. She was my sister. As the night wore on, Sarah stayed by my side. She didn't press me for details about my life. She didn't criticize my choices. She simply was there. She brought me a change of clothes, a toothbrush, and even a silly magazine she knew I loved to read as a kid. We talked, hesitant at first about small things. Her job, the weather, the ridiculously bad hospital food. Eventually, the conversation drifted to our parents. "They didn't answer," she said, her voice laced with a subtle bitterness I hadn't expected. I tried calling them too after the hospital called me. Mom texted back saying they were busy. Busy, Alex? Their own daughter is in the ER, and they're busy. The anger in her voice was palpable, a mirror of my own. It was a revelation. For years, I had believed Sarah was their unwavering champion, their mini-me. But in that moment, I saw a crack in her façade, a shared understanding of our parents' emotional unavailability. We spent the rest of the night talking, truly talking for the first time in years. We talked about our childhood, the pressure we both felt, the unspoken expectations that had shaped our lives. I learned that Sarah, despite her outward success, also carried the weight of their approval, a burden she was only now beginning to shed. The next morning, after being discharged, Sarah took me back to her apartment. It was a beautiful, meticulously organized space, a stark contrast to my cluttered student apartment life. She made me breakfast, a home-cooked meal that tasted like comfort and forgiveness. We continued to talk, slowly unraveling years of unspoken resentments and misunderstandings. She admitted that her initial siding with our parents about my career choices stemmed from her own fears of disappointing them, and a genuine, albeit misguided, concern for my financial well-being. She confessed that she had missed me, fiercely, even as she maintained her distance. And I, in turn, admitted my own stubborn pride, my fear of rejection that had prevented me from reaching out. The more we talked, the more I realized that Sarah wasn't the enemy I had painted her to be. She was just another product of our parents' emotionally distant parenting, struggling in her own way to navigate their complex expectations. The confrontation with our parents was inevitable, and Sarah insisted on being by my side. A week after my hospital stay, when I was feeling stronger, we drove to their house. The air was thick with unspoken tension as we sat in their perfectly decorated living room. My mother, ever composed, offered us tea, as if this were a routine visit. My father, gruff and avoidant, busied himself with the newspaper. Sarah, taking a deep breath, broke the silence. "Mom, Dad," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Alex was in the hospital last week. The doctors called you. You never came. My mother's teacup clattered against the saucer. Oh, darling, we were so busy, she started, her voice a practiced, soothing tone. We had that important charity gala, and your father had a crucial meeting. Busy? Sarah interjected, her voice rising slightly. Alex collapsed at work. She was in the emergency room. And you were busy? My father finally lowered his newspaper, his eyes narrowed. Now, Sarah, there's no need for dramatics. Alex is fine, isn't she? A little dehydration, nothing serious. That was it. That was the moment. The dismissiveness, the complete lack of empathy, the blatant disregard for my well-being. A cold, hard anger settled in my chest, replacing the hurt. Nothing serious. I finally spoke, my voice surprisingly calm. I was terrified. I thought something was seriously wrong, and the people who were supposed to be there for me, the people who brought me into this world, were too busy to even answer a phone call. My mother's face hardened. Alex, you're being overly emotional. We raised you to be independent. You're an adult now. Independent? I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Is that what you call it? Because it felt a lot like abandonment. Sarah, seeing the raw pain in my eyes, stepped in. Mom, Dad, this isn't about independence. This is about basic human decency. This is about showing up for your children when they need you. You didn't just fail Alex. You failed both of us. The argument escalated, a flurry of accusations and defenses. My parents, true to form, refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing. They retreated into their well-worn patterns of deflection and blame. They accused me of being ungrateful, of always seeking attention. They accused Sarah of turning against them, of being swayed by my dramatics. But something had shifted. Sarah and I, standing together, a united front, felt stronger than ever. We weren't alone in this anymore. The aftermath was exactly what you'd expect from a family like ours. A frosty silence, followed by polite but strained attempts at reconciliation that quickly devolved back into their familiar patterns. We didn't cut them out of our lives entirely, but the dynamic had irrevocably changed. Sarah and I, however, grew closer than we had ever been. She became my biggest supporter, cheering me on in my artistic endeavors, and I, in turn, became her confidant, the person she could truly be vulnerable with. We healed together, slowly, painstakingly. I still had my student loans and I still worked hard, but the burden felt lighter with Sarah by my side. She helped me find an affordable studio space, connected me with potential clients, and even became my fiercest advocate, proudly displaying my artwork in her own home. My art, once a source of conflict, became a symbol of my resilience, my unwavering spirit. I learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up for you, who stands by you, who loves you unconditionally, even when you've been apart for years. My sister, the golden child I once resented, became my anchor, my unexpected savior. So, that's my story. It's a messy one, filled with disappointment and unexpected grace. It taught me that sometimes the people you expect to be there for you are the ones who let you down the most, and sometimes the people you've pushed away are the ones who rush to your side. What an incredible journey of discovery it has been. Like this video, if you were on my side, if you understand the pain of parental abandonment and the incredible power of a sister's love. Subscribe for more stories like this, stories of resilience, unexpected bonds, and the complicated tapestry of human relationships. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Tell me, has a similar situation ever happened to you? I'll see you all in the next story.